Hey friends, Dr. Jenny here, drjeg.com. So in our last video, we talked about the concept of tiny hinges swing big doors. If you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it because it is absolutely worth watching when we are trying, when we have this goal that we are trying to achieve, especially if we have a goal that we've been trying to achieve where we're feeling a little bit stuck. Tiny hinges swing big doors. So go back and watch that one. But today, I wanted to kind of bring that into the concept of burnout because so much of what we talk about, so much of what I talk to my clients about is this concept of burnout and how do we take control of our lives, stop feeling burned out so that we can actually truly have the life and the career that we've been wanting to have. And again, when I talk to people about burnout, so often, I'll say, what do you think if you could have one thing change in your life that would make the biggest impact on your burnout? What would that be? And so often people say, oh, I need a new job, or I need a new boss, or I need to completely change environments. I need to leave the field and find a new career path. These are all huge, big things, right? These are huge, massive things. None of them are wrong by any means, but a lot of times those also aren't necessary because when we start to feel trapped, our brain automatically starts to go to extremes, right? Because if it goes to an extreme and it makes it too unrealistic, then we're going to stay right where we are. And where we are is safe because that's what our nervous system is concerned about, is keeping us safe. But of course, safe does not equal happy. And so where we are isn't necessarily making us happy, which is of course why we're talking about this, right? But that's what our brain does, is it we say, I'll say to somebody, what would be the biggest thing that could impact your burnout? And they'll say, oh, I need a new job, or I leave the field. And then they stay stuck because that move feels so huge and so intimidating and so impossible. But also, that move, while sometimes we're still going to get there, for sure, that's not the first step. And that's why we get so overwhelmed, because we're looking so far down that path that we literally can't figure out all the steps in between. And so one of the first things that can really truly start to end our burnout is when we start to back it up a lot and say, what is one thing that I could do today? Because if there are little tiny changes that we could make today that would start to help us feel better, then that big goal, first of all, sometimes it doesn't even seem as necessary. I was convinced I was going to leave the field, and now I have no intention of it, honestly. But also, it becomes so much more manageable and so much more, it feels more possible and less overwhelming. So, what are these tiny steps that we can take? This is the tiny hinges conversation, right? Tiny hinges swing big doors. Well, one of the first steps that I always talk to my clients about is starting to change how we start our mornings. So if we are used to waking up, hitting the snooze button 20 times, getting up, we're running, we get to the work, we're already scrambling because we've been scrambling since we woke up after the 20th snooze alarm, right? And then everybody's needing our attention at work, and we're going all day long, and then we end the day, and it's like we have to deal with kids and dogs and charts and records and clients and whatever, and then we get home and we have to deal with food, and then we fall into bed only to repeat the whole thing the next morning. Like, that gives me anxiety just thinking about that, and yet I lived it for a lot of years, right? Like, that's not something I'm a stranger to, and I know many of you are not strangers to that lifestyle either. But let's think about, given that description and how much anxiety it causes just to even think about that whole entire spiel, right? What would be one of the biggest things to make that day feel better? Well, for me, I will tell you flat out, one of the biggest things that starts to interrupt that is to introduce moments of calm. That's it. Just to put little moments of calm in there. And this is really hard in a lot of our fields because, like, for example, the veterinary field is very common not to get lunches and not to get any kind of breaks. And we're used to that. And that means that we have this, we feel like we just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, but we can only push so far, right? We can only push so long. And ironically, I kind of started to realize how important this was after I had my son, because then I was having to take a couple minutes here and there throughout the day to go deal with the breastfeeding stuff. And so it was kind of forced breaks. And I realized, this was back when I was still an emergency vet, I realized how much more ready to go and rejuvenated I was after those 10 minutes away. And so after that, I started to pay attention and go, you know what? I haven't had a lunch today. I'm just going to go step into an exam room for 5 minutes and just breathe. Or I'm going to go step outside and get some fresh air, even better. Or I'm going to go sit in my car so I'm in complete silence for all of 5 minutes. We're just talking 5 minutes. And not only would I feel 20 times better when I came back, but I was that much more productive, that much more efficient. So instead of like struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling, which of course affects our productivity anyways and how efficient we're being, I was able to take those 5 minutes, which I didn't think I had time for, and I was able to come back and be that much more productive and efficient. So that's just one example of what a tiny hinge can be that can make a huge difference when it comes to those feelings of burnout and exhaustion and, oh my gosh, I just can't seem to get ahead, and holy crap, do I have to do another day of this, right? 5 minutes can completely change the whole entire feel. And there's actually been studies about the most productive people out there who are also the happiest people out there. And the biggest thing they have found is that they incorporate little breaks into their days. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's going to be the simplest thing on the planet to do, especially if you're in one of the careers that has back to back to back to back to back appointments. But that's where it becomes even more important. And it's worth it if you can take that 5-minute break, feel 20 times better, and then be that much more present for your next clients or your next patients, right? So tiny hinges swing big doors. One of those tiny hinges can simply be, I'm going to step outside and get some fresh air for 5 minutes. You can even start with 2 minutes. It's still going to help, okay? But work up to having a true 5 minutes of, I'm going to go sit in an exam room. I'm going to go sit in my car. I'm going to go just step outside around the corner where the clients can't see me and just breathe fresh air for a minute. And you'll be shocked at how much of a difference that can make. Even if you have to put it in your schedule, and even if you have to set an alarm on your phone to remind you to actually do it. And then your homework becomes not letting yourself talk yourself out of it. Because remember, your nervous system thinks that you have to be busy every single second to be okay and to be acceptable and to be, not kicked out of the cave, so to say. But your logical 5% of your brain, your executive functioning part of your brain, knows that by taking those 5 minutes, you'll be better off on the other side. So that's my challenge for you in the next couple of days, is when you are working and you start to feel, ideally, even before you feel that level of, oh shit, I'm pushing that edge of burnout, I'm pushing that edge of exhaustion. Even better if you just automatically build it into your schedule every hour. Find the time to take those 5-minute breaks and then come back here and let me know how it helped or what you felt or what you noticed. But that's my challenge for you, is start doing that every single day, at least once, ideally a lot more than once. And then let me know. And then if this is something that you do want to explore further with us, go to our website, drjeg.com, and you can see all of the different ways that you can continue down this journey with us. We are happy to help. In the meantime, I am Dr. Jenny, and I will talk to you later.